The talk for this room is conflict of interest on Wikipedia. That is it possible for someone who's being paid to edit articles to contribute constructively to Wikipedia? With us today, we have David Goodman. David has been a long-time, you could say, moderator on the back end of Wikipedia. He works with articles for deletion, makes decisions about what kind of content is appropriate for Wikipedia, what isn't appropriate for Wikipedia, and he also serves on the arbitration committee. The arbitration committee is the court of Wikipedia. If there's any kind of dispute that happens on Wikipedia, there's different dispute resolution techniques. If it goes all the way to the top, it goes to David and some other judges. So David's going to be talking today about conflict of interest on Wikipedia, how that's addressed, how that's managed.
Well, this is going to be really, at first, a sort of what the state of things is at the moment, because there's been a good deal of development of it over the last few years. With a very few exceptions, everybody who writes for Wikipedia has a conflict of interest, because most people write on things about which they care. There are a few of us who like to show our virtuosity as writers or photographers or the like, but even then, there's usually no, and sometimes I will simply edit something to show that I can edit it. But normally, we have enough of an interest in something that we want to present it to other people, but we don't actually want to present it in a completely neutral fashion. We want to show other people why it's important. And in fact, if it isn't important to other people, there shouldn't be an article on it in the first place. This affects almost everything, but there are some topics where this really is a serious problem. One of the most serious problems that have been over the last few years, and which previous arbitration committees have done a lot of work on, and which is not over, is people having disputes about religion and politics, and sex and related subjects about which people care deeply. Most people have a limited range of views on these subjects about which they are willing to discuss in a civil fashion. And in ordinary life, we usually don't look for occasions to discuss them in a hostile fashion, because we mainly associate with people who have more or less the same sort of views. This doesn't work at Wikipedia, and the ability to work constructively on a topic about which you have strong views when your views are not being accepted is a very difficult one. There are several responses to it. One is to leave the topics alone, which means that the people who are the most fervent zealots will be the ones discussing it. The other is to try to convince other people, and the third is to try to drive off other people. Where all of these have been tried, all of these work. Some topics cannot, in practice, be discussed neutrally here, and we have had rules in place that such topics as parapsychology, for example, is discussed not from a purely abstract frame of view, but from a scientific point of view. And this was one of the decisions of arbitration committee about 6 years ago. Medical topics are discussed from the viewpoint of conventional academic medicine. This was a decision of about 2 or 3 years ago. They are both things which I support, but they are also both things which have been used to minimize the discussion of alternative medicine and of parapsychology and of ghost sightings and all of the rest of the stuff. There's a continuous debate about which new religious movements or weird-ball fringe religious movements, and which ones are respectable religions that ought to be discussed. And this is normally handled by people trying to remove as many articles of the side they don't favor as possible. The result of this is inevitably to tend to, well, I would say that the result of this is inevitably to trend to a policy of some cross between blandness and a reflection of what the majority thinks, except for the size of Wikipedia. Because there are enough corners in Wikipedia that if you manage to find a topic area which isn't much noticed, you can really pretty much say whatever you want to. And people have been doing this all along. The system for keeping a neutral point of view only works if there's a large number and a variety of people. And there are some topics where there are not. This is about to come to arbitration committee, in fact, with our next case, which is going to be on American politics, which is basically conservatives versus liberals, and each of them are really, in practice, trying to drive the other side out. And each of them are convinced that the other side has by far a majority of the viewpoints and the majority of the articles. And in past years, we've usually been able to compromise of some way. Our articles on the presidential campaigns have been pretty good, actually. But on peripheral topics from there, that tends to be a problem. As American politics has gotten nastier in the last few years, so has the debates, and the whole topic is up for discussion, and I do not know what we're going to do. The arbitration committee works as a committee which hears evidence and then votes as a panel, with each of the potentially 16 people, though not all of them are always present, votes in public and gives their individual views, and the majority carries it. Usually some things are carried by everybody and some things end up right down the middle. This is going to be a long and difficult case because I don't think there's anybody on the committee who knows what to do and how to resolve this problem. I certainly don't. But this is the sort of thing we are used to dealing with at Wikipedia, and our mechanisms handle it pretty well. There's another kind of promotionalism where somebody writes an article to promote the interests of an organization they believe in. These articles are usually written as press releases. It is extremely difficult to get anyone else in on them. They are either written as press releases or as attacks on the organization. These are pretty much the two alternatives because nobody else much cares. These tend to be very, very difficult to deal with, and I would estimate that about 95% of our articles on universities are press releases, and that about 80% of our articles on philanthropic organizations of various sorts are press releases, and almost all of them should be rewritten or removed. This is about 1 million articles. It is very hard for people who write on these topics to understand that when we ban promotionalism and ban advertising, we mean more than just commercial advertising. This is the universal retort. This is a non-commercial organization. It's the universal answer. And we find it I've been trying for years to find a way of explaining we do not have one. They're convinced that if it's for a good cause, it's not promotionalism, basically. And they usually resent this very much when we try to deal with it. And trying to get these articles neutral is a very long process because whatever you do, it keeps coming back. Some university articles are a different sort. They're not written by the press agents. They're written by a group of enthusiastic alumni or students. These have their own bias. They tend to be in somewhat livelier writing style, but they will certainly also go through and talk about every building in campus in detail with a separate article on each of them. And getting them removed usually means fighting against the opposition of fans. Getting them merged into the main article is usually a problem. Wikipedia has a lot of mechanisms to avoid removing articles, though we remove a lot of them. The basic idea is that almost anything can be merged into a discussion of a longer subject if people do it. Very few people are willing to do it because there's a great prestige in terms and a great deal of Google hit influence in having the article title be about your subject. This gives a much higher ranking on Google. And this very much discourages the attempt to combine subjects. If they would recognize our subheadings as significant, it could deal with a lot of the problems. But the real problem which has recently come up and come to a fore, though it was always there, is commercial organizations. Every business firm in the world that has discovered the internet wants an article on Wikipedia. Every businessman, our professional man, who doesn't disdain it entirely, which is about half at this point, wants an article on Wikipedia. Those businesses and professionals where people are paid for services care very much about advertising. And we have, for example, had a great deal of difficulty with articles on dermatologists. In the past, many of these articles have been written naively by the proprietor or one of his staff. These can be told fairly easily. The sort of articles a university press agent does, I can tell a mile away because I know what such offices do and what the prose looks like. But there has, in the last 4 years, developed an industry of paid editing for Wikipedia. This can be either legitimate or illegitimate, depending at the moment on whether it is disclosed that one is a paid editor. A few of my good friends on WikiFriends, and one personal friend, is in fact a declared paid editor who says that he is writing an article for pay and is relatively selective about the clients, because pay is usually on a basis that you do not in practice get paid unless the article stays in. And since you're declaring you're doing it for pay, this gets attention. This is considered legitimate provided they write a neutral article. There is only one accepted way of writing a neutral article, which is to write it as a draft article, not to write it in main space. You can write it in namespace, but you are taking, as a paid editor, but you are taking your chances. And no good paid editor would do this because it's much too risky. We then have the problem that moving draft articles to main space is a hit and miss business. And over the last year has been done. The first thing somebody does when they join Wikipedia is before they learn how to write, is often that they mark articles for deletion, or that they want to approve other people's articles. They may never have written one of their own, they may never be capable of written one of their own. I and a few of my colleagues, especially a guy called Khud Pung from Thailand, have been working very hard to get these standards up a little. They've gotten up a little. There is another way of people from organizations getting edits made, especially if they want to remove negative material. We have a group called OTRS, Open Ticket Response System. That's a generic software term. It means a lot of different things. It's basically an email address where people can write in with complaints. And we get about 100 or so a day. And there's about 50 people who handle it. Any experienced editor who's trusted can ask to join the group, and you'll move up in the group depending on how much you can be trusted. This is the only group way in which somebody can write to try to prove who they are. Yes, this is my company, sort of thing. Because we do not believe it, and there's no way of proving who you are in Wikipedia in the normal sense. But this can be private communication. You can ask for changes. The foundation will get involved to a certain extent. I have a running commission at the moment to try to keep, from the foundation, to try to keep watch on the articles of UNICEF, and they try to keep an eye on articles from major organizations to keep them in some degree of rationality, informally. But the real problem now is can you get just give me the video page. The real problem is paid editors who don't get. The real problem is paid editors who don't declare themselves. This is become a established industry. It is not a very profitable industry. The people in the industry have estimated that nobody actually earns a living by it. A few people earn a living by consulting about Wikipedia, which mainly involves telling a corporation that they should stay off, which is usually the only honest response you can give. And you can earn a living by this because a company will usually believe it from an outside consultant when they won't have, even if they're arguing it themselves. And, oh, okay, good. The status of this. Yeah, if we have a question.
Any questions on conflict of interest?
So far?
Ideas? Yeah. Oh,
How did the paid editors declare?
How do the paid editors declare themselves?
Can you recap what you said about paid editors and also the neutrality and why you've decided to accept that people edit for pay?
First, you declare yourself on your user page, or you declare that you have a conflict of interest on the article talk page or in the edit summary. You don't have to say what the conflict of interest is, but you have to say that there is one. The reason we permit it is because we can't prevent it. People will do this whether or not we permit it. By making it rule that they have to declare it, we have some hope of keeping it under control, basically. If we could prevent it, if contributions to Wikipedia were not anonymous, and if we knew who everyone was and we could prevent them from people with a conflict of interest, monetary conflict of interest from editing, probably the decision would have been to do so. But this is incompatible with anonymity, so we're stuck with it.
You said monetary conflict of interest.
Monetary conflict of interest is the most straightforward one. The other ones blend off into your simply being interested in a topic, and it's much harder to deal with. You have to rely then on the question of whether the article is NPOV and uses sources correctly, and you have to argue over the article. Someone who is taking money in the sense of being a paid staff member or as a consultant, this gives the strongest incentive to try to get an article in whether or not the article is any good. And that's the real problem with paid editing.
We have another question here.
It produces bad articles.
Hi, I love Wikipedia editing. I used to be a professional word processor in an investment bank for like 15 years, and I would like to do it for good now versus evil, you know, haha. Anyway, and I saw that there was a company that was they were posting their job listing on Indeed. For Wikipedia editors, they charge $95 to $100+ an hour to the clients to edit Wikipedia. And I was thinking, I want to apply for that job. But it's against the rules.
If we catch you, we won't throw you out.
You will throw me out.
If we catch you.
So
Is there a way to to do that ethically? Is there a,
There is a way
Of
to do it
self-declaring it.
ethically. You have to, when you do this, you have to declare on your talk page that you are writing it for the company, that you have been paid to write the article.
But won't I just get kicked off of Wikipedia? I
No,
don't
you
want to
will not be
jeopardize
kicked- You
my,
will not be kicked out for writing for pay if you say you're writing for pay.
so full disclosure is okay?
Full disclosure is okay, mainly because it's the only possible way of discouraging the people who don't want to disclose.
Because it would seem to me that it would make sense that you would want editors who are active Wikipedia editors doing the article editing because, like, we're better at it because we're doing it all the
Yes.
time and we have the skill set.
I will now give you some simple business advice. Charge 3 times that amount.
So go for the money, yeah. Okay.
It cannot be done properly at $100 an article. You need more time than that.
It's $100 an hour.
Oh, most people charge per article. And the going rate is for the ethical ones is between 500 and 2,000.
And you have a list of people, list of places saying,
I'll speak to you afterwards on that one.
okay, I think that's a great place to end this discussion today. Thanks, yeah. We're not, yeah, no more questions right now. Okay, thank you. Okay, we are going